Will Apple be here forever? What comes after the iPhone is done? When will MacBooks get redesigned? And why isn't Apple a bank yet? This and more as I answer your Apple questions. Want the latest Apple news, leaks and rumours? Subscribe and ring the bell. If you ever have an Apple question you want me to answer in a future video, use hashtag iCaveAnswers down in the comment section, just like these guys did.
How long do you think Apple will stay around as a company? Do you think they will ever go bankrupt? Or is there a company that could replace them?
It's impossible to say whether Apple will be around forever. Most companies aren't. There's very few companies that have been around for the whole of time because time is finite. However, there's no indication that Apple is in any kind of trouble right now. They're going from strength to strength. They are still, I think, right now, or at least at the last check, the second most valuable company in the world after Microsoft. Nvidia overtook them briefly a couple of days ago, but yeah, it's Apple and Microsoft right now, still absolutely dominating. So I don't think we have anything to worry about right now, but you never know what the future will bring. You know, there could be huge solar storms and all of a sudden technology doesn't work anymore. You know, all the chip fabs could be destroyed by some kind of global catastrophe. There will be changes in the world. Someone will come up that will probably do better than Apple. But right now, we've got nothing to worry about. And who could replace them? Right now, I don't know. Microsoft, as I say, has got the money. I just don't see them hitting that kind of cultural aspect that Apple does so well. Let me know in the comments if you think there is anyone that can overtake Apple in the sort of cultural impact that they have and the reach they have with consumers.
When do you think phones will go obsolete? What will replace them realistically?
I think it's going to be a long time yet, and remember, there's still people that use dumb phones, there's still people that don't use smartphones, there's still people around the world that don't use phones at all. So it's not necessarily something that is going to be replaced very quickly, and even when the next thing that will replace them comes along, I don't think it's going to be like an overnight thing. I think the chances are it is going to be some kind of wearable. It is going to be either most of the functionality going into a watch may be paired with cameras in a pair of glasses like this, some sort of AR kind of thing, but I don't think it's going to be anytime soon. I think we enjoy bringing more things together, which is what's happened with the phone. We've combined, you know, the camera, the calendar, the messaging, communication, browsing the internet, gaming. There's so much that's come into this thing. I think there's still more features that we will get in the phone before things leave the phone and we move on to a new form factor. I think there's always going to be something in our pocket, at least for the next 15 years, that will be along the lines of the phone. I think the phone is maybe mid-cycle.
What is your favorite Apple product and why? If you could only have one, what would you pick?
This is going to be controversial and it's not even something I own. It's iPad mini. I think the iPad mini is like basically the perfect form factor. It's a little bit bigger than just a smartphone, so I wouldn't want to have a phone that's as big as an iPad, but I could live with like a dumb phone for making calls and sending text messages. But would I need to if I had an iPad mini, which I could use for FaceTime, I could use it for text messaging, I could use it for iMessage, I could use it for watching content, I could actually edit on it, I could film content with it. You know, that's the kind of sweet spot for me, is that's what I'd want, because it's small enough that I could put it into a decent jacket-sized pocket. That would be my perfect device.
If Apple is allowing to change the Apple icon colors, why not allow changing the app icon, as well as making a proper theme store, where they can sell their own themes and make money of developers making themes?
I've asked this for a long time. I don't know exactly what we're going to be seeing with the updates to themes. It might be that it is more in-depth. It might be that it's using AI to kind of extract the icon from an app icon itself, you know, the actual glyph, and then allowing you to change other colors around it. It might be that developers need to put their app icons into a kind of layered system so that Apple can do it that way. You can change your app icons, but it's just a little bit in-depth. You have to use shortcuts and things like that. It's doable, and app developers have the option to put in multiple app icons. Some of them, like X, use it as a premium feature where you can change your app icon if you're a subscriber. Others just give you the option, people like Patreon. But I think there's going to be some apps where they're not going to want you to change that color, and whether Apple forces that or not, I don't know. We will see. But yes, I do think theme kit is a thing that we should have, and people should be able to create these, but it doesn't feel very Apple, and I kind of get why they're not, because they don't want people to see an iPhone looking like absolute crap and think that's what iPhones are like.
Answers as a YouTuber. How long did it take you to find your niche in the tech news space? Do you find particular topics always do well for you?
Yeah, so when I originally started this channel, it wasn't even my first channel. My first channel was about bartending, which is what I did for the first, I don't know, 15 years of my career, 20 years of my career, like, entirely. Then when I started this in the pandemic, it was more about iPad, and it was about how you could do more with the iPad that you already have, and it was like a 5th gen iPad back then as well, so it was pretty old, but it did really well for me. And it was when Apple Silicon happened that I was like, oh, we're using iPad chips in Macs, so now I can talk about Macs. And very much Mac is the thing that has made this channel bigger. People on this channel don't seem to like me talking about the iPhone as much as they do about the Mac, which is fine by me, because I find that more interesting too.
Will iOS 18 allow us to transfer data over MagSafe?
No. I don't think that there's actually the capability built into MagSafe at this point. I think there could be a MagSafe 2 which has that kind of thing, but it will not be activated by a software update. I think the U1 or the U2 chips in our devices could be used for data transfer, but I'm pretty sure that the MagSafe pucks don't have U1 or U2 chips in them at the moment, ultra-wideband, which would work because it's very close and wirelessly transfer, but yeah, I don't think it's going to happen.
What happened to the 32-inch iMac and 14-inch iPad that Ross Young mentioned? Any new news about a new studio display?
It sounds like the 14-inch iPad has been pretty much scrapped completely. The 32-inch iMacs that we'd been talking about before, we're talking about mini LED displays, and it looks very much like Apple has moved away from those, so I don't think we're going to be getting that anytime soon with those panels. I think we might just get an LED iMac that's larger. I don't think it's going to make that much difference on a display of that size, but OLED eventually, but I can't see that coming before like 2027, 2028. That makes the most sense to me.
Will the MacBook Pros be redesigned in 2026? It's also the year they're supposed to get old displays, hopefully tandem. Will the MacBooks ever get 30H battery life?
Okay, on this one, I do think that 2026 makes sense for a redesign. It's been since 2021. 5 years is a reasonable length of time, 4 or 5 generations. So, yes, I think that is probably when we'll get a redesign. Will it be dramatic? Probably not. I think it will be an evolution of the current design rather than something very, very dramatic. We are also hearing that potentially we've got foldable MacBooks, which are kind of a cross between a MacBook and an iPad coming. You know, that's on the way. 30-hour battery life? No, probably not. I think once you've got up to 20 hours, which is kind of what we've got with the MacBook Pros now, Apple would probably prefer to make the enclosures thinner and make them a little bit lighter and a little bit easier to use rather than pushing out to a ridiculous battery life.
What other services can Apple add in the future? Why hasn't Apple made a bank yet?
I would say with the bank thing, it's probably a liability thing. They have to have ridiculous amounts of cash reserves, which honestly Apple does have, but I don't think it's the kind of thing that Apple wants to get into, because then Apple would get into debt collecting, and that's a very bad look for a company like Apple, which is very consumer-centric. So I think that's probably a big part of it. It's much easier to hand off the nasty bit of being a bank and like messaging your customers saying you need to pay for this thing that you've bought, whereas Apple can hand that off to a bank and let them do it.
Looking at a new computer for reception at work. I can get Windows PC, current Gen i7, 16 GB RAM, 512 GB SSD, with monitor and peripheral for under £300, but I'd rather get a Mac. What Mac would perform basic admin's Office L tasks and be available at a similar price point?
It's got to be a used Mac Mini. Go for an M1 Mac Mini. You can probably pick it up for maybe $300, $350, then dumpster dive, find yourself a display, a keyboard and a mouse, clean them, because obviously if you're dumpster diving, you want to make sure these things are clean. But other than that, I think paying that little bit extra, yeah, you're not going to get quite as much storage, but I'm going to say if you're in an office, you've probably got other desktop computers. It's much easier to put external storage into a Mac Mini because you're not moving it around all the time. Makes a lot of sense. And you can always look at changing displays and keyboards and monitors and stuff like that down the line. And, of course, you can get fairly cheap, reasonably good keyboards and mice. They're not particularly expensive, and they'll do the job for you. But that would be the way I would go if you want to do it. But I wouldn't go pre-Apple Silicon. I would definitely sort of start with an M1, because before that, Mac Mini, A, it took ages before they updated it, and B, they're pretty crap. So yeah, go Apple Silicon or go home. And that's it for this episode. Thank you for all the questions. Hashtag iCaveAnswers. If you've got one for a future video, we will be live streaming before and after WWDC's keynote on Monday. So make sure you set reminders for that. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you, Patreons. We love you all. And we got a new one. A. Hughes, thanks so much. Want the latest Apple news, leaks and rumours? Subscribe and ring the bell.